Iran's oil crisis is quickly approaching the point of no return. The President of the United States issued an extremely unusual warning, saying that Iran's oil infrastructure is on the verge of exploding. Iran's oil fields will not survive the ongoing American blockade. An attempt at the dramatic move by the Revolutionary Guards is taking place. Iran's allies enter the picture, and the negotiations become more complicated. Khamenei's son did not only waste Iran's resources, it is much worse than that. Trump's checkmate against Iran requires either a surprise attack or stagnation. But either way, no matter where this goes, Iran is exhausted. Iran's army issued a direct threat towards the United States. We are ready to act if required, they said. Now, in the United States, a spy scandal and the assassination of scientists is becoming clearer. There is growing suspicion of an international espionage operation against American scientists. A series of disappearances and deaths of nuclear scientists in the United States is raising suspicions of an organized intelligence operation, possibly led by China, Russia, or Iran. Hezbollah wants to turn southern Lebanon into an open war zone. I'm Yair Pinto. With me is Mati Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground. We bring you the full truth about what's happening in Israel and also the full truth about what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. And this is the opening of day 59 of the war, Roaring Lion, or by its American name, Epic Fury. Iran will reach the very edge of its oil capability within just a few days. The naval blockade is creating a critical buildup of pressure inside Tehran's pipelines and underground systems. Within about 3 days, the Iranian system could suffer irreversible damage. And from there, it is only damage and destruction. The daily losses are enormous, and Iran cannot afford to absorb them. Iran and the United States are putting economic pressure on the one another through the naval campaign on each other, and each side is hoping that the other side will break first. According to estimates, Iran is losing around $435 million a day because of the American blockade. On the other hand, oil prices continue to rise, and that's creating economic pressure on the entire world. Iran is in a panic to return to negotiations, and that's why it is trying by force to bring Oman into mediation with the United States over the Strait of Hormuz. Oman is trying to promote expert-level talks and a 3-stage framework that would include ending the war, regulating the strait, and according to the fantasy of the Revolutionary Guards, only at the very end, after everything is agreed upon, there would be a decision about the nuclear issue. And this is only the tip of the iceberg compared to the strict conditions of the Revolutionary Guards in Iran for negotiations. And I'm tired of this because the Iranian proposal seeks to bypass one of the central disputes with Washington. I thought that the Revolutionary Guards really heard what Donald Trump had to say. And what he said was very clearly, because Trump was very clear when he said that they do not speak through mediators. They can call directly. And that the first rule before talks begin is that Iran has no nuclear program. So, do you agree with me? Is it clear to all of us that the Iranian proposal is doomed from the start? And here the question must be asked. Why did the Revolutionary Guards in Iran submit this proposal to the United States? The Iranian foreign minister landed in Russia ahead of a meeting with Putin. Abbas Araghchi blamed the United States for the failure of the talks and said that the approach of the United States led to the previous round of negotiations not achieving its goals. And at the same time, the Iranian army is sending a threat towards the United States. In the Iranian army, messages are being sent about readiness for renewed fighting, as the deputy commander of the Navy warned that some of the military forces have not yet entered the confrontation, but they are ready to act if required. Right now, it is not clear how Trump will respond, but what is certain is that the current situation, in which there is no fighting but also no agreement, is very, very troubling for Tehran, and they cannot recover from it. The important economic newspaper in the Islamic Republic announced that inflation will jump by 70% in the coming week, and this is after it was already on the floor. Following the Israeli strikes against Iran's steel factories a few weeks ago, Iran stopped exporting the steel, and right now it has no one to sell it to. And the harsh message from the Gulf states yesterday is that Israel stood against Iran. We will not be able to forgive that Britain did that to us, and we will not forget. So, is there a coup about to happen in Lebanon? Hezbollah's plan to sabotage the summit with Prime Minister Netanyahu is something in the making here. After reports in Israel about the summit between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, reports that were not confirmed by Beirut, the terrorist organization is working to prevent the meeting, which according to the reports in Israel, is planned for May 11th. Lebanese security officials told El Hadat that the Shiite terrorist organization wants to turn the villages from southern Lebanon into an open combat zone, and by doing so, disrupt the negotiations with Israel and limit their management to Iran alone. Naim Qassem of Hezbollah: "We will not give up our weapons. We will continue the resistance and respond to the aggression." I'm Yair Pinto. With me is Mati Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground, bringing you the full truth about what's happening in Israel. And this is day 59 of the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And just before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click on the subscribe button, and most importantly, do not forget to look for me, Yair Pinto, and for Mati Shoshani on our social media platforms so you can get our own personal view of what it's like to live in Israel under this war. The ceasefire has paused the recent violence. However, there is a spiritual battle that is taking place. And today, nearly 99% of Israelis do not know who Yeshua, Jesus in Hebrew, is. Think about that. Nearly 99% of Israelis do not know Jesus. However, a miracle is unfolding, and one for Israel is sharing the gospel, and Jewish people are accepting Jesus in numbers not seen since the early church. Many Arabs are also finding faith and unity. One for Israel is an initiative of native-born Israelis, good personal friends of ours, sharing the gospel, discipling believers, and equipping spiritual leaders all across Israel. As Romans 10 verse 1 expresses, "My heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they may be saved." Your support helps bring the gospel back to Israel. And I want you to do something right now. You can pick up the phone and call 800-879-5530. That's 800-879-5530 to help share the gospel in Israel. You can visit oneforisrael.org/pray. Again, that's oneforisrael.org/pray, or scan the QR code. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the news as Golani Brigade infantry forces of the IDF destroyed more than 50 Hezbollah terror infrastructures in southern Lebanon. During the operation, they uncovered an underground compound, weapons hidden inside a child's room, explosive devices, grenades, rockets, and an explosive drone that was launched towards the forces and intercepted. This is not just another ceasefire violation. This is an entire method. Hezbollah returns into the villages, hides weapons inside civilian homes, and tests where Israel will stop. So, is the IDF still carrying out a limited clearing operation in southern Lebanon? Another option is that we are already seeing the beginning of the collapse of the Northern Arrangement. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report, closing day 59 of the Roaring Lion War, or by its American name, Epic Fury. And this day tells one clear story. The fire may have slightly faded from the skies, but the war has not stopped. It has simply changed shape. In Lebanon, it's being fought inside villages, children's rooms, tunnel shafts, and explosive drones. In the Persian Gulf, it is being fought through a naval blockade, tankers, oil, mines, and shipping lanes. Inside Iran, it is being fought through steel, fuel, electricity, inflation, and the regime's deep fear of internal collapse. And in Washington, it's being fought through one question: who will break first, Trump or the Revolutionary Guards? Let's begin in the north. The IDF announced that the Golani forces have destroyed dozens of Hezbollah terrorist infrastructures in recent days, south of the Yellow Line in Lebanon. Amongst the targets that were destroyed was an underground compound used by the terrorist organization to attack IDF soldiers and Israeli civilians. Inside one of the buildings, the troops found weapons hidden inside a child's room. Explosive devices, weapons, grenades, rockets, and additional military equipment. This is a detail that we need to stop on for just a moment. Hezbollah does not hide its weapons only in bunkers. It does not hide them only in military warehouses. It brings them into civilian areas, into homes, into rooms where children should be playing. They should have books and toys there. And that's how it builds its permanent shield. If Israel does not act, Hezbollah gets stronger. If Israel does act, Hezbollah cries that villages in South Lebanon are being hit, civilian villages. And during the operation, an explosive drone launched towards the troops was also intercepted. And this connects directly to the recent events in southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah is trying to use the drones, the cells, the motorcycles, the civilian vehicles, and disguised military buildings in order to wear down the IDF without officially declaring a full return to war. But reality does not wait for declarations. On the ground, the IDF continues clearing the security zone. The forces are destroying buildings, locating weapons, exposing shafts, and preventing Hezbollah from returning to the positions from which it threatened northern Israeli communities for years. This is slow work, hard work, not always shiny, but it determines who will control the day after. The Lebanese state, or an armed Iranian militia. And this isn't exactly where Lebanese politics enters the picture. Hezbollah is now trying to sabotage the possibility of a political arrangement between Israel and Lebanon. According to reports from Lebanon, the organization is preparing a campaign against the Lebanese president Joseph Aoun in an attempt to weaken him and prevent progress in the negotiations. In Israel, there have been reports about a possible summit around May 11th, but in Beirut, there has still been no confrontation, no confirmation that an official invitation was received. Hezbollah understands very well what's on the table. If Lebanon moves towards non-aggression agreement or a security agreement, Hezbollah loses its story. It can no longer claim to be Lebanon's protector, while the Lebanese state itself is trying to save itself from Hezbollah. That's why Hezbollah needs to sabotage. It needs to incite. It needs to present the president as someone surrendering to Israel. And it needs to pull the Shiite street back into fear, anger, and dependence. The data coming out of Lebanon is difficult. Lebanese media is speaking about dozens of destroyed villages, displaced residents, loss of control over large areas in the south, and a Lebanese economy that Hezbollah has once again dragged into the abyss. And still, the organization does not give up, because for Hezbollah, Lebanon is not a state. It is a stage. It is a warehouse. It is Iran's human shield. Naim Qassem has already sent a message. Lebanon's negotiations do not obligate Hezbollah. The sentence matters. It means that as long as Hezbollah holds independent weapons, the Lebanese state does not have real sovereignty. You can form a delegation, you can talk about an agreement, you can send representatives to Washington, but if at the end an armed organization says that the state does not speak for it, that's exactly the problem. And from here, we move to the place where Iran feels the pain most sharply. Not on the battlefield, in its pocket. Iran has stopped steel exports until the end of May, following the Israeli strikes against steel plants in the country. This is not a small economic detail. This is a strike against a wide industrial system. Steel is not only an export product, it is the foundation for construction, industry, heavy equipment, infrastructure, and parts of military systems. When a country like Iran stops steel exports, it is admitting that the damage has reached the place deeper than the weapons warehouses. And this is happening while Iranian oil is entering a bottleneck. Oil storage tanks at the Jusk terminal have reportedly reached maximum capacity. If the American naval blockade continues, Iran may be forced to shut down oil production from its wells within days. And in such a case, the damage is not only the loss of a day or a week. Forcing oil wells to shut down in this way can cause long-term damage to the fields themselves, damage that may be taking years and billions of dollars to repair. The estimates speak of a daily loss of about $435 million for Iran, and the halt of about 1.5 million barrels of oil per day. In monthly terms, this can reach tens of billions of dollars. And that's before even talking about inflation, unemployment, shortages of the foreign currency, difficulty paying salaries, and the regime's inability to continue funding its terror network. Trump understands this. That's why he's not rushing into another wave of strikes. He's keeping Iran under continuous pressure. In simple words, he's not only bombing the regime, he's forcing it to pay for every hour that it continues to refuse. In a phone interview, Trump described the pressure on Iran's oil infrastructure in an unusual detail. According to him, when the oil cannot leave, it continues to build up inside the system, inside the pipelines, inside the storage tanks, and inside underground infrastructure. If the line remains closed, internal pressure grows. Trump estimated that within days, the system could suffer severe damage and said that even if Iran tries to repair it, it may return to only part of its original capacity. This is not regular threats. This is the use of economics as a precision weapon. The Americans are saying to the Iranians, you can keep talking about honor, resistance, and revolution, but in the meantime, the oil is not leaving, the steel is not leaving, the money is not coming in, and the regime is becoming to feel the economic ground move under its feet. This is where the Strait of Hormuz enters the picture. Iran is trying to turn the strait into its central card. It is offering the United States to reopen the shipping lanes and the fighting and leave the nuclear issue for the later stage. From Tehran's point of view, this is the framework. First, stop the fire. Then, arrange Hormuz. And only at the end, let's talk about the nuclear issue. This is not a coincidence. This is the strategy. Iran knows that the nuclear file is where it is under pressure. That is where the Americans want commitments. That is where Israel wants capabilities dismantled. That is where the world is asking where the uranium is, where the centrifuges are, and what remains of the program after the strikes. That's why Tehran is trying to move the decision to the subject where it still holds leverage, Hormuz. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has brought Oman more officially into the mediation around the strait. Tehran and Muscat are discussing expert-level talks, freedom of navigation, control, and the management of this maritime passage. Oman has always been a quiet mediator in the region, but this time, that quiet sits on top of a global oil barrel, because a massive share of the world's energy supply passes through Hormuz. When Iran threatens there, It is not threatening only America. It is threatening Europe, Asia, fuel prices, airlines, plastic, fertilizers, supply chains. It is threatening almost every product that moves by sea. Everything that's built with energy all depends on the price of oil. There are now hundreds of vessels in the Persian Gulf. According to published data, about 892 vessels are currently in the area. In one day, 5 vessels entered the Strait of Hormuz and 14 left it, including several Iranian ships. Some vessels are turning off their transmitters and entering dark mode in order to hide their location and affiliation. That may sound technical, but it's a measure of fear. When captains begin disappearing from the map, the market understands that the sea is no longer safe. And meanwhile, oil prices are rising. Reports say that price reached around $107 per barrel after standing at around $90 after the ceasefire announcement and around $73 before the war began. Every increase like that eventually reaches the American citizens at the gas station, the European citizen in the electricity bill, and families everywhere who pay more for food, transportation, and basic goods. And that's why Trump is not operating in a vacuum. He has his own hourglass. On May 1st, the 60-day framework that allows the president to use certain military force without broader congressional approval is set to expire. There can be legal debate about exactly what's allowed and what is not. But politically, it's clear. The longer the war continues, the more pressure builds inside the United States. And in November, the midterm elections are approaching. Trump wants to defeat Iran, but he does not want to be dragged into a war that raises fuel prices, divides Republicans, and brings Washington back into the debate over endless wars in the Middle East. Iran understands that, and that's why it is trying to buy time. But Iran's time is also very expensive. The naval blockade may not defeat a country in one day. Experts estimate that Iran can try to hold on for months, find smuggling routes, use ships that are already in their way, and rely on years of experience and bypassing the sanctions. But this time, there is a difference. This is not just a sanction written on paper. This is an active naval campaign. Ships are checked, blocked, seized, or forced to change course, and the regime does not know at every moment what will pass and what will be stopped. And that's exactly why the Iranian proposal looks like a peace offer and more like an attempt to rescue leverage. Tehran is telling the Americans, let us arrange Hormuz now and talk about the nuclear issue later. But Washington understands that if it removes the blockade now, and it may lose its strongest card, because after the oil flows again, after the money comes back in, and after the regime breathes again, why would Iran truly give up anything on the nuclear file? That's why the White House is responding carefully. Trump said the Iranians know what must be in the agreement. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. For him, that's not a side clause. That's the heart of the whole matter. And at the same time, Abbas Araghchi of Iran continues moving between capitals. Pakistan, Oman, Moscow, and maybe more regional channels. His goal is clear: to build a path in which Iran does not look like it surrendered directly to America. But Trump is putting another message in front of him. There is no need for an 18-hour flight. If Iran wants to talk, it can just pick up the phone and call. That's a short sentence, but it captures the entire situation. America is not chasing Iran. It is waiting for Iran to come to it. And before we continue, if you understand how important it is to have the full picture of what's happening on the ground, not just the headlines, but who's acting, how they're acting, where the threat is coming from, make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on TBN Israel on our YouTube channel. We are boots on the ground. We bring you the full information of what's happening here We have a whole team that does this. So again, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to see the behind-the-scenes look of what it's like to be in Israel in this war, look for Yair Pinto and for Mati Shoshani on our social media platforms. And now let's return to the big question. Is Iran about to break, or is it only waiting for a chance to fire back? The Iranian military is sending messages of readiness. Farmaraz Bamani, deputy commander of the Iranian Navy, said that some forces have not yet entered the confrontation, but are ready to act if required. According to him, the forces are ready and waiting for orders. This is Iran's usual language, to show that everything is under control, even when the blockade is choking it. To show that the military still has the cards, even when the economy is being squeezed. To show that the regime is not afraid, even as it looks for a way back to the table. But there is a difference between real readiness and a performance. Iran can threaten, it can send boats, it can activate militias, it can block routes, but it also needs to pay salaries, operate refineries, maintain internal stability, prevent shortages, and convince the public that all this suffering leads to a victory. And here is the regime's problem. The Iranian people are not revolutionary guards. The message coming from the Gulf says this very clear. Voices in the United Arab Emirates are emphasizing that the Iranian people are not the regime, but its victim. An ancient people with a rich culture taken hostage by a dark leadership. That message managed, and it matters because it separates the regime from the Iranian people. It says the struggle is not against the Iranian people. The struggle is against the regime that exports terror, missiles, militias, and fear. In that same message from the Gulf, there was also sharp criticism of Britain and Western countries that disappeared during moments of crisis, alongside praise for Israel as the country that stood against Iran in real time. A true friend is not measured in comfort, but in crisis. That statement explains the regional change. Arab countries that saw missiles and drones above their heads suddenly understand who protects in practice and who only talks about stability. This war is rebuilding the map of alliances. Israel, the United States, the United Arab Emirates, and other Gulf countries do not always say everything out loud. But on the ground, against Iran, a new system of interests is forming to protect the sea, to protect energy, to weaken the Revolutionary Guards, and to prevent Tehran from using terror as foreign policy. And inside the United States itself, another concern is rising. There is an expanding investigation into a series of unusual cases involving American nuclear scientists who disappeared or were found dead. Former FBI official Chris Swicker warned that some of the cases show a similar pattern. People leaving home suddenly, without a phone, without a wallet, without keys, and sometimes with only a personal firearm. Amongst the cases under review are people with backgrounds in sensitive laboratories and nuclear research. This must be said carefully. There is still no public conclusion about who stands behind this. But the very fact that the White House instructed the cases to be gathered under one investigation shows that the Americans fear a foreign intelligence effort. China, Russia, and Iran have been mentioned as possible suspects. And this fits into a wider picture. The war over the nuclear issue is not only about bombs and facilities. It is also a war over scientists, knowledge, plans, secrets, and minds. In the Middle East, the war over the mind is almost as important as the war over the territory. You can destroy a facility, you can bomb a runway, you can block a port, but nuclear knowledge, missile knowledge, intelligence knowledge, those are things hostile to countries, and countries want to steal them. They want to preserve, to transfer, and to revive them. That's why the story of Iran does not end in Hormuz. Hormuz is the economic card. Steel is the industrial wound. Oil is the oxygen. But the nuclear file is the reason that this entire war becomes so dangerous. If Iran manages to come out of this round with the nuclear issue pushed to a later stage, with the blockade removed, with the shipping lanes open, and with money flowing again, it will present that as a victory. And that's why Washington is debating. Should it take a partial agreement, open Hormuz, calm the markets, and risk Iran dragging out the nuclear issue? Or should it continue the pressure, even if the fuel prices rise, even if the markets are nervous, and even if the military risk grows? Israel looks at this from a different angle. For Israel, for us, Iran is not only a problem for the oil prices. Iran is the head of the axis. It funds Hezbollah. It holds Hamas. Iran is activating the militias in Iraq, in Yemen, and in Syria. And it is trying to turn the Middle East into a space where every moderate country lives under permanent threat. And that's why what happens in Lebanon and what happens in Hormuz are not two different stories. When Hezbollah hides rockets in a child's room in southern Lebanon, that's one end of this axis. When Iran tries to blackmail the world through the Strait of Hormuz, that's the other end. In the middle, there is money, oil, nuclear power, propaganda, fast boats, drones, missiles, and governments trying to survive between fear and hope. In Lebanon, the hope is that the Lebanese state will succeed in freeing itself from Hezbollah. In Iran, the hope is that the Iranian people will not remain hostage of the Revolutionary Guards. In the Gulf, the hope is that the sea will reopen without giving Tehran a prize. And in Israel, the hope is simpler, that the borders will be quiet, that the north will come back to life, and that we will not have to explain again to the world why a child's room full of rockets is not resistance, it's terrorism. But as day 59 closes, we're not there yet. The IDF continues to operate in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah is trying to sabotage the agreement. Iran is trying to turn Hormuz into a rescue deal. Trump is holding the blockade. Iran's oil infrastructure is under pressure. Steel exports have stopped, and the nuclear issue is still waiting at the edge of the table, like a political bomb that no one has managed to move. This war is not measured only by the number of strikes. It is measured by the question of who loses their room to maneuver first. Will Iran surrender to the pressure before Trump surrenders to the price? Or will the next mistake at sea, in Lebanon, or in Tehran open the next round? So keep spreading the truth. Follow us. Most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you stay tuned to what's happening in Israel, boots on the ground style. Look for us on social media platforms. I'm Yair Pinto. With me is Mati Shoshani. The best thing that you can do is to unite in prayer for the situation. We pray for the people of Israel in this difficult and dangerous hour. We pray for the soldiers of the IDF, of the United States Navy, Air Force, and military in this region for protection, wisdom, strength, and clarity as they defend our homes and our people. We pray for the families of the North who are still living under threat, uncertainty, and displacement. We pray for the wounded, for healing and restoration. We pray for the families who lost loved ones, for comfort and strength. We pray for the leaders of Israel and the United States to make wise decisions in a dangerous moment. We're praying that the enemies of Israel will be stopped, that lies will be exposed, and the truth will continue to rise. And above all, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.